Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to my channel. It has been a week since our last Man of Steel video, so it is time to cover issue 2 in Brian Michael Bendis' Man of Steel 5-issue run. I think if you just asked me for my overall takeaway impression, it would be very similar to issue 1's, in that lots of good stuff, lots of great Superman characterization, but once again, still too early in the story to see exactly where he's going with certain things. And this review is going to be spoiler-filled. I tried to keep review of issue 1 as spoiler-free as possible, but at this point, I don't understand why anybody would listen to a review of issue 2 without having read issue 1 or having any intent on what it, unless you just want the story without necessarily reading it, or if you don't care if you know the story before you read it. So, just a fair warning there. We still don't receive any more information on the fire chief from last time. A lot of people in videos besides mine were pointing out the little bit of fireworks there we're a little concerned about. We'll keep an eye on that and see where it goes. Let's start with the good. The art, just gorgeous. Just absolutely amazing art. And this issue featured Doc Shaner, so you know it's going to be amazing. Steve Rude, for crying out loud. Jay Fabuk. Amazing artist. The art's just wonderful, beautiful art all the way through. Didn't even find a panel that I was a little disappointed in. Just wonderful art. Really what I call the iconic appearance of the DC universe too. Sometimes you get artists who want to stylize it a little too far this way or that way, but these artists all have their own unique styles. I'm not trying to paint them as copies of anybody, but it's all sort of centered on that Jose Luis Garcia Lopez style, and this is different, of course, because it's different artists, but still that level of realism, I guess, that realism, even within the idealized forms and such, that level of focused, realistic representation is nice and good, I think, for the DC universe. So that was great. Like I mentioned, the characterization of Superman, we see him being his old self. I love the moment we see between him and Green Lantern. He still hasn't revealed the secret of what's happened with Lois. No one else really knows. I think at this point it's pretty safe to assume that he probably just relocated her and John for their safety, but we don't really know. At least I haven't been going ahead and reading spoilers or anything, so at this point in the story we don't really know the absolute truth of what happened with them. It's not something he's willing to talk to people about. He does sort of brush off Green Lantern, not rudely by any means, but doesn't really let him in, so to speak, and he feels sorry for that. He says he should be better than that and shouldn't just rely on his Superman persona to get away with not opening up to stuff like that to friends. So, great characterization from Superman. I loved it. Loved the little combat between him and Toyman. So I appreciate the fact that in each one of these issues, Bendis is showing Superman be Superman. We see him being heroic. We get to see him showing forth the values that we love about our iconic Superman. So, good job, Bendis, on that. There are a couple things I'll point out that I think could have been done better, but the reason I don't have a lot to say big picture-wise is because when you have a 5-issue arc like this, for it to be a good story arc, you have certain pieces that have to fall into place. The first 2 issues should do the work of introducing the characters, introduce all the players. Certainly the first issue should ideally cover all of that, and this pretty much does. Second issue to third issue, that's about rising action. You are introducing the main conflict, but you're working your way in. The pacing should be as such where the tension is slowly rising. We have a rising sense of action, a rising sense of the stakes. And that can overlay between issues 2 and 3. Issues 3 and 4 will be the central conflict, the main climax. Our hero might win or lose some battles on the way to this, but eventually you have to come to that main final climactic conflict. And then issue 4 and 5 should certainly contain the overcoming of that conflict. Usually it takes place either in the beginning of issue 5 or in the last half of issue 4. And then 4 and 5 would be the denouement. It's a French term that basically means after all of that, returning to the status quo. What is the effect of this conflict that's just happened? We do need a little bit of a denouement. What's the world after? How has this conflict changed our heroes and changed their world? Not always for the bad, and certainly we don't want to see Superman's world altered and shaken and darkened or whatever, but any kind of action or occurrence in one's life does have an effect, does have a consequence. So we'll see that. Hopefully it'll be positive. Hopefully it'll be the return of Lois and John and all of that. So that's a basic story structure, and you'll see that in novels, in movies, or whatever, and you can break it up even further, and in some different ways. You can fit it into the 3-act structure and so forth, but if you're going to have a 5-issue arc like this, those are general pieces that need to be there, and that's the general order. But at this point in the story, we're still stuck in the rising action. So that's what I mean when I say not everything's been revealed yet. Can't really speak to a lot of these little things. One small thing that I did see, and it's, if I'm doing a review and just picking out some things, Bendis is certainly not a new writer. He's lauded as an amazing writer if you listen to DC's marketing campaign. So I would expect a little better in a couple of these areas. Some people in the past have pointed out some of his dialogue. And yeah, it really smacked me over the head in a couple of places that I want to mention. At one point, towards the beginning of the issue, one of the Guardians, Apialiapsa, and this is the sentence that he says. This is the long-winded sentence, and you might read it thinking, well, yeah, that makes sense or whatever, but these are written words, but these characters should be speaking them out loud, so they should be written such that could be spoken out loud. So I'm going to read this single sentence out loud, and you'll see why it's nothing that anybody would ever say out loud, and this really should have been written quite differently. If Rogal, this legendary creature of war who is bathed in the blood of millions of souls to fight for what he believes in, if he took it upon himself to betray the galactic circle he has sworn to serve and protect, if he went behind our backs and rid the universe of an entire species, what do you think he'll do to you and your 42 star systems if you keep going with this line of inquiry? No. Human beings don't speak like that. And yes, I know this is a Guardian, not a human being, but it doesn't matter if you're writing an alien, a monster, a silicone-based life form, whatever. You have to start from a human perspective because that's all we as human readers have to go on. It's a nitpick, sure, absolutely, I admit that, and it's certainly in no way ruined the issue. I still quite enjoyed the issue. But if you're going to be lauded as the great comic book writer that they're lauding Bendis as, then you should have something as basic as dialogue now. And the editor should certainly catch something like that. I don't care if it's a comic book, it's still a high art form. One other place that I want to mention, I've heard my friend and fellow YouTuber, The Fan Man, and his link is in the description as well for his channel. He's been doing some great live stream reviews of Man of Steel. He's mentioned in the past how he didn't really like the characterization of Perry White, in terms of the dialogue anyway. And I could see what he was saying a little bit, but I really wasn't completely on the same page with him there until I read this issue here. And this is after a gossip columnist has suggested that they print the story of whatever might have happened between Lois and Clark. And Clark sees something on TV, a disaster, and he takes off quickly to go save it as Superman, of course. And the reporter says, where did Kent go? And Perry says, you offended him because you were just really obnoxious and he left? With a question mark behind it. That's the way that's written. Perry White does not speak like that. Maybe a 14-year-old girl speaks like that before she's completely corrected her syntax, but that's just... Perry White, the editor-in-chief of a newspaper, does not speak a sentence like that. So little touches like that, and again, I know this is nitpicking, and I do recommend this issue. So far, so good in this run. I'm still keeping an eye on those things that I'm still concerned about, and still don't trust that Bendis isn't going to pull on us, so I'm still very wary as I continue, but I'm just being honest, we've had wonderful Superman moments thus far. In these first two issues, so far so good. But with a writer, like I said, lauded as Bendis is, and in such an important, monumental run as this is supposed to be, as it's being marketed as, fix the dialogue. That's just basic writing. No real excuse for that. So that's issue 2 of Man of Steel. Then in the back of this issue is a preview for the new Teen Titans series that's going to start next month. And wow. My first reaction to the cover is clearly some resonances of the West Coast Avengers in that cover that was released a few weeks ago and had everybody scratching their heads as to why are they giving us more of this sort of OMG so random type of humor and whatnot. Are they going to be trying for that angle or demographic or something? But then I read about the story and they're actually going too far the opposite direction, at least as far as I understand. So I read the little preview of the story in those pages. And then in this week's first DC Nation issue that they're trying to give out at comic book shops now, there's a little 2-page spread on the new Teen Titans series. This looks pretty awful, in terms of my taste anyway. I'll explain. I'm not going to rule out that it might end up being a well-written story, and that's fine, but they really are going for a completely new, different version of the Teen Titans that you don't recognize in terms of the classics. In fact, Adam Glass, who's going to be the writer on this title, says, and this is his quote from the DC Nation, Robin finally has his team, not Dick's hand-me-downs. This is his team to mold, and unlike past Teen Titans incarnations, nobody's here is questioning his leadership. That's awful. That is so awful. Damien is the worst little brat of a character. If you like this little prick of an arrogant douchebag of Damian Wayne, if you like his character, then maybe you'll love this title. Everyone keeps trying to defend Damian Wayne to me, saying, he's had such a dark past, and he's been through all of this stuff, but he's trying to do right now, and isn't that inspiring? If that was the case, sure it would be. And I was even almost sold on that with Super Sons, because I really love that interplay between him and John Kent, and I thought that was, okay, maybe there's something there. And even in the Teen Titans before this, with him, quote-unquote, leading Starfire, Raven, and all of them, Starfire was really doing most of the leading there, because Damian's young. I don't care what he's been through. I don't care what experience he's had. He's young. You don't get to lead. You don't get to tell people what to do when you are 13 freaking years old. You don't have those leadership qualities within you yet. Not to lead people who are much older than you and more experienced and so forth. But because he's got that Batman link, because he's a badass, he's Batman's son, everybody just lets him go and do whatever. And the whole he just pulls this crap all the time in the DC Comics universe, and going rogue, doing whatever he wants to do because he thinks that's the right thing, and he never really faces any consequences for it. Stopping Flash's heart, stopping Wally West's heart in that stupid Deathstroke crossover, and then everybody just sort of shrugged it off like, silly old Damian. And that's what gave Wally his heart problem, which was a dumb idea, just really stupid story idea. And unless they bring it back some strong way in the Flash War, the continuity seems to just kind of be pretending that never happened, or that it was a temporary thing and is sort of now over. You don't see a lot of repercussions from that anymore, thank goodness. So Damian was somewhat palatable to me because he was reined in, because he was being checked. And now he's got his own little team to boss around and do things his way. To make it worse, unless you think I'm just still being too reactionary and whatever, this is the shtick of the Teen Titans if you don't know. Damian is tired of the adult heroes and the way they do things, constantly fighting the same criminals. He wants to go stop crimes before they're committed. He wants to go capture the people who will commit a crime. Who thinks this is a good idea? That's not even an original idea either. That's been done in stories and in comics even. Wasn't that the whole Civil War II in Marvel? I don't know exactly how they're going to develop the idea here, but it's not original. It also seems to be borrowing a little bit from the Champions idea in Marvel, even though Mark Waid really left that whole idea underdeveloped. Kamala Khan and Miles Morales preaching to the adult because they wouldn't fix a train after they stopped a bad guy in a heist or some nonsense like that, and that was their rebellion about wanting to be the new generation of heroes that do things a different way. So you got a little bit of that idea here, although Damian's going to be going down a darker path. Now, despite all of this, I'm just speaking to the premise and the direction that they've stated they're going in. Maybe the stories will be well written, who knows. I might pick up an issue or two just out of curiosity, maybe to review, but this is not an issue that's going to be added to my pull list. This is nothing that I'm interested in spending any time with. It's just not interesting to me at all. It's everything I don't like about Damian coming back to the surface. He almost had me, but alas no. So that's my thoughts on the Teen Titans there. Let me know what you think of Man of Steel #2. Did you pick it up? Did you read it? I know that some people are refusing to give their money to it at all because of certain principles of Bendis and whatnot. I totally understand that. But I know some people, like myself, are hoping for the best. So what did you think? Did you agree with my assessment that so far so good? Or did you see some problems that I maybe didn't mention? And what do you think about this Teen Titans direction? I know a lot of my friends and viewers are super hardcore Damian fans. So go ahead and tell me how I'm wrong and how Damian rocks and whatever. We'll disagree about it in the future again. But thanks for watching. I really appreciate all the viewers, the subscribers, everybody clicking the thumbs up. It's helping the channel to grow. It's so hard for new channels to grow, and especially till they hit that magic mark of 1,000. And I'm so close, so I really appreciate all the new subscribers who have come on board. I see people sharing videos around on Twitter. Definitely appreciate that. So please share them with whoever you think might be interested, and we will make that 1,000 mark soon enough. I'll be back soon with more reviews and to elucidate on more mythological aspects of comic books and children's cartoons and whatnot. Until then, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero stories you love. Thanks for watching.